It's like being in church.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Planning and Zoning meeting tonight, Thursday, August the 2nd, 2018. It's been a long time since we've been together. I think it's since April was our last meeting. So I would be remiss in not mentioning a big thank you and sincere condolences to our friend Mrs. Teresa Scott for all the time and effort that she put on this board, and we're really going to miss her. And so just a big thank you to her family. But that being said, we'd like to welcome our newest member, Mr. Eric Holt, joining us tonight for his inaugural meeting. So welcome, Eric, to the board. And so first order of business tonight will be our minutes from the, I'll take that back. We'll have a public hearing to start with. So public hearing for Jordan's Place site plan. Mr. Gabriel, you want to bring us up to speed, sir?
I will.
And it's also good to see you as well.
Thank you, members of the Planning Commission. It's good to see you guys. Yes, and Teresa, we will miss her greatly.
Yes.
I will miss her weekly calls, challenging every opinion I have, and I will admit this now, sometimes she was right.
That's exactly right.
A lot of times she was right. But we agreed to disagree.
That's right.
So we have on for public hearing tonight Jordan's Place. As you guys are aware, Jordan's Place is located up on Main Street currently. They have a application here for a conditional use permit to move to 105 Northeast Street, which is kind of behind the building where the tattoo parlor and the pawn shop is. This is a conditional use permit, so you guys are reviewing it under section 405.390, and I have the wrong one, and the conditional use permit part. For purposes of conditional use public hearing, I would ask that the city code be made a part of the record by reference, also the public hearing notice and the comprehensive plan, which is also on file with the city clerk. And I have nothing in addition to the Planning and Zoning Commissioner report for the conditional use permit to submit to you guys at the time. I am available to answer questions on it, and I don't know if there's any members of the public that are here to speak on the project.
Thank you. So, is there anyone else who would like to speak on Jordan's Place site plan? Sir, step to this podium, state your name.
Hi, I'm Bob Trutkin. I'm with Deerfields on Main. I am the president of the Downtown Association. We have monthly meetings. We have discussed this at our last meeting. We're in total support of what Jordan's Place does for their kids, but we don't think that downtown is a place for these kids to go to. There's been numerous vandalism going on. The Millers, who couldn't be here tonight, they're on vacation. They're the ones that are renovating the old Yesterday's building. They've had numerous vandalism acts done on their building. And so we support what Jordan's Place does for their kids. We just don't feel that downtown is the place for that.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chadlin Andrews. I'm the owner of the tattoo studio next door to the proposed area for Jordan's Place. I am strongly opposed against this, although I do give credit to Ms. Clodfelter and what she's attempting to do for our youth. As the other gentleman spoke, downtown is not the place for it. My building has been vandalized 3 times. Spray can with cuss words and derogatory statements. I have personally had to chase youth out of the back area. My building is very secluded. It's wrapped around on 3 sides on a piece that sticks out. So it's almost invisible from anywhere. You actually have to walk onto my property to get back to where the vandalism is happening. There's a small gap between 2 of the buildings that face Main Street, and these little guys that can run through there are able to get, I can't even put my leg through there, but I've watched them run through there. I've chased them off of my place. I've had the police escort them off of my property, and they continue. They've tried to break in my back door while I'm conducting business in my place. I spoke to Ms. Clodfelter about it, and she informed me that, you know, when somebody there breaks the rules, that they tell them to leave. The problem is now you have an angry minor who wants to retaliate. And they're not going to retaliate against necessarily Jordan's Place's building. They're going to walk down the alley, they're going to go to a neighboring property till they can find either a spray can or a rock to break a window, which all the windows are broken on the back of the building now. And they're going to retaliate out of their anger for not being allowed to do whatever it was they're doing. I'm very opposed against having a place for unsupervised minors. Jordan's Place can only supervise them on their property, in their establishment. Once they remove them from there, their will to do whatever they want downtown, and that's not the place for unsupervised minors. So,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Steph? State your name and
So I'm Kathy Pritchett, and
I'm Kelly Clodfelter.
we are the co-founders of Jordan's Place. And I guess I'm a little bit confused as to what the opponents here think is going to happen if Jordan's Place isn't here. This is already happening. We're not next door to them now. It's something that's going to happen whether we're there or not, whether we're here or not. That's why we're here. One of the reasons why we're here is to give the youth somewhere to go where they are supervised. And they do have a purpose, and they do have somebody that cares that they're here. We know that there's been vandalism, but the police don't know who it is. We don't know who's doing it. So it could be anybody. And again, it's going to happen whether we're here or not. It's not because Jordan's Place is here that's happening.
Can I speak? So when we first opened Jordan's Place, actually before when we were going through this process, we talked to you guys because we did have somebody prior, if you remember, the last go around. We had a company that was close by that had the same worry. And we were talking about the fact that I was a counselor in our community before losing my son. And I dealt with a lot of youth, and I dealt with the program that Kathy ran called Step Up, where we dealt with kids that were coming from the foster care system. And how many times that we were yanking them out of homes right there on the strip right behind Jordan's Place and the strip right behind where Oak Street is located. Not to mention that the house that my son overdosed in was on Oak Street. So we had these criminal behaviors going on all around that location long before we opened Jordan's Place. We had issues at Blackhawk when we first opened that anytime any kid was doing anything, it was automatically a JP kid. Well, we've gotten past that, and now Blackhawk has invited us to be a part of the panel that we're all working together and communicating together so that we can work and help each other with these kids. And we're stopping some problems. When there's a problem at school, we're all communicating so that we can be aware and help and make sure that it doesn't move to JP. And when we're helping with the church so that if there's a problem at JP, it's not moving over to youth night at one of the churches. So we are starting to build those relationships with everybody. I'm not saying that the kids don't do things because they do vandalize our buildings. I can't tell you how many times my husband has been in our alley scrubbing off the bad words because we do make them leave when they're being disrespectful, or if we catch bullying, or if we catch stealing, or if they break things on purpose, or, they do these things. But in our opinion, we're not going to punish 25 kids because we've got 2 that are doing something they shouldn't be. Because we do have a lot of kids that's not a problem, but there's always going to be youth that causes problems. Our hope is that we have the police station working with us right now, Truesdale Police. They're helping us pick out the right security systems, and we're going to have security inside and out on Jordan's Place, in the front, the side, and the back. That way when we have these problems going around on our streets, we can actually turn it over to the police and start holding these kids accountable, because that's the only hope we have of making these kids understand that there's consequences to their actions. So in the past, we didn't have such great cameras, but we're getting really great support now. We've had people who, this is their 2nd year in a row for holding great fundraisers for us. Just got done with one for over $6,000 that just got ran for us. So we're able to buy a good security system that we not only will help ourselves, but we're hoping to help all those around us, and so we can start making these kids be accountable for their actions.
thank you. Thank you, ladies. Anyone else to speak tonight during the public hearing portion of the meeting? Hearing none, we'll close our public hearings on the Jordan's Place site plan and conditional use permit. And open up our regular meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission with the minutes from our April 5th, 2018 meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 5th, 2015, I'm sorry, April 5th, 2018 Planning and Zoning meeting as submitted.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Costello, second by Ms. Blondin, to approve the minutes as submitted. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mr. Deitch?
Yes.
Mr. Cullum?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Abstain, I was absent.
Mr. Durbin?
Yes.
Mr. Gerloff?
I was absent.
Mrs. Blondin?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Abstain, I was absent.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 with 3 abstentions. And next order of business will be election of officers.
I move we maintain the same officers that we have presently.
We'll need a
You need a secretary.
Yeah. We'll have to have a replacement secretary.
Ms. Blondin, you can sign the paper.
I can sign paperwork if that's what it is.
It's easy, you'll be fine.
Nominate Ms. Blondin.
Yes.
Have a second on that?
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Deitch, second by Mr. Durbin to nominate Ms. Blondin for secretary. And also keep the other officers in place. Any further nominations?
Move that nominations be closed.
Thank you. Roll call vote.
Mr. Cullum?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Durbin?
Yes.
Mr. Gerloff?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondin?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mr. Deitch?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0. Next order of business will be our boundary adjustment for Costello Properties, -63.
And I'll leave the dais because
I don't know why.
Involved.
Why would you do that?
As the name would imply in the property in question.
Right.
So the agenda item number 3 is the boundary adjustment for Costello Properties. This is just simply a boundary adjustment under 410.060. The plat was submitted for 405 East Walton. The attached proposed boundary adjustment is included in your packet, and you can see where the boundary adjustment is taking place. It was notification of the property owners was also sent, and there was also notification posted outside at City Hall. So as you guys may recall, we've done sporadic boundary adjustments, but typically these are essentially automatic if they meet the minimum requirements of it. We just send the notification, and they're essentially just moving one boundary line, as it suggests, to another boundary line. So when there's 2 contiguous properties, and we have 2 on for tonight, 2 contiguous properties, the code allows that to be done without actually doing a subdivision and exempts all the requirements of sidewalks and whatnot. So I don't know if you guys have any questions at all about it. And this will be a recommendation that will go in front of the Board of Aldermen.
Any questions from the board?
So this piece of property looks like it's 50-some feet by 70 feet is going to become part of Lot 2. Is that the intention?
I believe that is. Mr. Costello is here to answer any questions.
The area that's roughly 55 by 70 feet, that is now part of what is your office building, is going to become part of Lot 2, correct?
The office building is on this property. Basically removing this line to here, which keeps, this has a rental home on it, and I'm selling that to the neighboring property owner. This allows us to be a 70 by 120 foot lot, which is what is required by the city for minimum lot size. And then this property there's a garage on this, a 4-car garage. It's accessed by the parking lot of the Tri-County Agency. And Scott and his partner will end up owning this together, which is what it should be.
Is the garage on the lower part, the
Yeah, I'm sorry, right here.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, this is dealer L, they're not really taking our frontage. So this garage is accessed this way now.
Correct.
When I bought this property, it was from Fred Pope and Danny Martin, that should bring up a lot of history.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I bought it to build the garage on it. So that's the reason for
With
these.
the location of the garage in relationship to the property lines, does it meet minimum setback requirements for
Yeah.
rear and side yards?
The properties in this district are 0 lot line requirements.
Okay.
So we covered that with the building commissioner. Actually, this started back when Jack Hamp was still here.
So yes, it does meet all our code requirements. As Mr. Costello represented, that's why it's in front of you guys for approval.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion?
Motion to
I'll make a
approve the
motion.
site plan.
Mr. Cooper,
Boundary adjustment,
boundary adjustment?
yes.
Mr. Cooper makes a motion to approve the boundary adjustment as submitted. Mr. Durbin, second it. Any other questions or comments about the boundary adjustment from Mr. Costello? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Durbin?
Yes.
Mr. Gerloff?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondin?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Costello is abstaining. Mr. Deitch?
Yes.
And Mr. Cullum?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0 with one abstention. And that'll come in front of the Board of Aldermen on
August 22nd.
August 22nd. Thank you. Next order of business will be the boundary adjustment for Rural King -64.
So, once again, this is a boundary adjustment pursuant to 410.060F. It is essentially taking in a little bit of land, as this is obviously for the Rural King. A boundary adjustment approval request was submitted for Lot C of Warrenton Shops on June 28th. The proposed boundary adjustment plat is in your file. The attached notification of the property owners is also in your file. And the meeting notice that was posted in the lobby is also in your file. The attorney for Rural King, Mr. Murray Choate, did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Murray Choate is here as well. He is the counsel, in-house counsel for Rural King. There's a letter that's also in your packet that details exactly what they're requesting. It does meet all the code requirements.
I had a hard time seeing what was moving. Did anyone else have that problem? I'm the only one.
Can you explain that, Randy, from there? We have a laser pointer. Does you guys got one of the pointers up there? You can give me an idea. I can see where the
I don't think it worked.
I can point if that's okay.
There, that worked. I'll never get it.
Even better. Okay, thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you. I've not had the opportunity to come to Warrenton before and to address your group, so thank you very much for that opportunity. I am an attorney in Charleston, Illinois, so happy to be here on behalf of Rural King. So if I can figure out how to...
Red button on top.
Red button.
Okay. So Rural King recently acquired 2 parcels of property, this larger parcel, parcel 1, and the second parcel 2, from the Keevan Family Partnership. And after we acquired that property, we are now exchanging 0.32 acres that was acquired from Keevan as part of this parcel 2, and we're receiving 1.32 acres from Warrenton Shopping Centers LLC, which is the owner of the adjacent shopping center. So as you described it, it's basically just a switch of the boundary to accommodate the development of the new Rural King store, which roughly would be situated there. So return your point.
Thank you. I believe it was Mr. Deitch's pointer. So. But as I said, it meets all the provisions of code and meets the requirements under the boundary adjustment ordinance. And it requires a vote to make a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen for approval.
Make a motion, we approve the boundary adjustment.
And I'll second it.
So we have a motion by Mr. Gerdoff, second by Mr. Deitch, to accept the boundary adjustment as submitted by Rural King. Any other questions or comments from Mr. Grove? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Mr. Durbin?
Yes.
Mr. Gerloff?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondin?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mr. Deitch?
Yes.
Mr. Cullen?
Yes.
And Mr. Barton?
Yes, motion passes 9-0. Thank you, sir. And that will also come in front of the Board of Aldermen on August 22nd at 7 o'clock or 7:30?
6.
6? Move to 6. I've been out of town since April, I guess. All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'm only have to go to bed early.
That's true, those old guys.
Watch that old guy stuff.
Next order of business will be Jordan's Place Site Plan -125.
All right, so getting back to the discussion of Jordan's Place. So a couple of things about this. I'm just going to raise a couple of the concerns that staff had. We actually looked at some of the property damage numbers, and we could not get a detailed property damage analysis for what the surrounding areas are. What exactly was, you can't correlate property damage directly to Jordan's Place that exists as it exists right now. And in fact, if you look at the numbers since 2016, or 2016, I think, there's actually been a little bit of a decline in the property damages in the vicinity of Binkley Woods Park and whatnot. But we had to have a very large bubble of property damage to look at to really get an accurate count. There have been quite a bit of recent vandalisms, and I think they recognize some of the graffiti, window breaking and whatnot. And just as a staff, we tried to compile just some of the thoughts that had come through from the downtown groups and some of the observations about where this property is located. One of the concerns staff has raised is the fact that this is going to be, there's a teen center located right next to a tattoo parlor and a pawn shop, and whether or not for you guys to consider that's an appropriate location for it. Before the location where it was pretty much isolated because there was nothing else that was right there, had its own corner. The second concern is we looked at the number of calls to Jordan's Place, and one of the concerns in kind of looking at the phone calls over the last couple of years that we wanted to kind of bring to your attention was not really any type of, they're very good about if there's some inappropriate activity, they call the police, which is obviously what we want them to do. There was a couple of scuffles, a couple of fights that were in there. But really, most of the calls have been about the teens hanging outside in front of the building, either waiting for rides or Jordan's Place was closed and it wasn't open for a particular reason, and there were 5 or 6 teenagers, and then they start to meander about or whatnot. So I think the property damage issue, number one, is hard to correlate directly to Jordan's Place, except for their comments say, hey, we know it's a problem. There's not really a way to quantify whether or not there's been an increase in property damage of the buildings downtown without it being somewhat anecdotal. And we just wanted to be very upfront and say we can't quantify this as a staff. It's just anecdotal from the property owners that are down there as far as what's there. There is concerns from a safety perspective about the fact that it is I'm not trying to generalize about tattoo parlors or pawn shops, but there's a concern that you're basically you're puzzling them in between those two things.
Well, combining kids' activities versus adult activities, short, yeah.
And so some of the things that staff talked about was this concept of, is there an outdoor space or an outdoor area where they can allow kids to go outside that will not create a visual, and one of the other things was, we got calls about littering and cigarette butts. Our public works director, had voiced some issues over the fact that it required to clean up a lot up there that he correlated with Jordan's Place with cigarette butts and whatnot. But I know you guys had heard those complaints, and you guys tried to make an effort to clean it up and be very judicious about requiring that. So just from a staff perspective, there are some concerns about the exact location of it downtown because it is near adult activities. There is some concerns about the location not being visible and that it's kind of behind, and what that does, because we all know one of the biggest concerns about property damage downtown are the alleyways. Law enforcement is now patrolling the alleyways on a regular basis because there was so much property damage that was occurring in the alleyways. There is no way to quantifiably say that that is directly related to Jordan's Place, and I think it would be unfair to say all the property damage, because some of the juveniles involved in the reports we pulled were very, very young. Some of them were around the Jordan's Place age, but there, like I said, there is anecdotal information that they got kicked out of Jordan's Place, where they, were too young or whatnot, where they told their parents they were going up to Jordan's Place. But there did seem, especially over the last year, to see a higher amount of complaints received about juveniles causing property damage downtown, but that's not directly correlated in any statistics or records the city has to Jordan's Place. So those are the concerns that staff has. Those are the concerns we're asking you guys to consider and you guys to discuss with regards to the conditional use permit vote and consideration of the application.
Well, first of all, everybody I've talked to in the last few weeks about this whole issue, and even tonight, I think we just make it clear that everybody's commended what you've tried to do. So whatever is said here tonight, let's make sure that we know that we're all commending you for the efforts that has been made. So I don't know what's the result of this, but there's definitely some concerns from everywhere I talk to and everywhere we turn. So, but I will open the floor up for any discussion, questions, comments. And the ladies are here to answer any questions that we have for them. So yeah, you'll be able to answer questions when they have them for you, no doubt. Yeah.
We'd like to address some of the
Sure,
concerns.
that's fine.
So at a high level, why the movement from one area to within 2 or 3 blocks of the same area? Why not an area that's not impacted?
Okay, a couple of reasons. One of the first reasons is the city was nice enough last year that they helped us with funding.
Right.
With the understanding of that funding, we were told that we had a couple of tasks that they would like us to look at. One was finding a building that costs less. 2 was getting off the main street of downtown, off of Main Street. The second reason for the move was that our landlord, who has been absolutely amazing, has decided to put the building up for sale, which we cannot afford to buy. And that put us in a position to go month to month. Moving JP is way bigger than a month-to-month thing. I mean, we've been closed down since mid-June, and we just now got rid of, number one, we downsized because we went to a much smaller facility. So we had a lot of stuff to get rid of, a lot of stuff to donate to other places and things like that. But we could not afford to put ourselves in a position to go month to month and all of a sudden her say you have 30 days to get out, because we wouldn't have been able to make that happen. So there was 2 things. Honestly, we really felt like it was meant to be because it fell into place so perfectly that we found something a little away, not too far, because my goal has always to be in this area. I know that a lot of people have things to say about us being downtown, but the problem, like I said, we came there for a reason. The kids are hanging out in that area regardless. I know that because it was happening before I lost my son. So we wanted to be there. The kids are walking down that area anyway. Lots of youth live out behind there and opposite on the other side. So we want to attract those kiddos. Our goal is to eventually, and we're working, the pawn shop owner owns those buildings. He owns Rat Daddy's building, he owns our building, he owns the building between us and Rat Daddy. So our goal is, there's a big area out behind us. We would like to make that an outdoor area for the kids so that they're not hanging out front. And like I said, with the cameras and such being out front, to the side and behind, we're hoping to be able to keep a very clear eye on what's going on around us.
Thank you.
And my question would be, I'm a little bit confused because we're already on Main Street. We're already approved to be there. So are the concerns you want us to stay where we're at on Main Street?
Well, I think it's a conditional, understand it's a conditional use permit.
Right.
So the reason and the purpose, I can actually read straight from the book about a conditional use permit and what their consideration is that they're supposed to take in is, it specifically says, the conditional use permit procedure is intended to provide the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Board of Aldermen, with discretionary review of requests to establish or construct uses or structures which may be necessary, desirable in a zoning district, but which may have the potential for negative or, I don't know what that word is, impact on the health, safety, and welfare of the public. The purpose of the review is to determine whether the proposed location of the use or structure is appropriate and whether it will be designed, located, and operated so as to avoid, minimize, or mitigate adverse impacts upon the community and other properties in the vicinity. So the purpose of a conditional use permit, it's a special procedure where they can say, yes, you're in the downtown district, yes, you're in this commercial district. However, we can look, the purpose of it is to say, is this appropriate in this location within the district? And so, yes, you have a conditional use permit downtown, but you are up there on that corner. They can look at this and they can say, well, is this the right spot to give them approval in this area? That's the purpose of a conditional use. So it doesn't create like a, well, we're already downtown, so we can just transfer. It goes location to location.
Right, and I do understand that, but right after we moved in, a vape shop was
Right
approved
next
to go
door.
right adjacent to our building, which was very detrimental. We didn't like that either.
Because
so.
they also sold furniture, so they covered their, where the kids could go in there. And I can't tell you how often we were over there telling the kids, get out, because they were letting them smoke
We've
over
talked-
there.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so what I'm saying is, it's very emotional, and it breaks my heart, because everybody wants to say, oh, it's great, we commend you on what you're doing, and we think it's a need, but not here. We don't want it here. And that's why we have issues in this county, in this city, is because nobody wants it in their backyard. And I will tell you, we have some incredible kids in this city. And so it's very hard for me to sit here and hear you talk about these kids like they don't mean anything, and I'm sorry.
Not meaning you, not meaning you.
I'm not saying you.
I started saying.
No, it's
Correct.
not you. It's just when people stand up and say,
Sure,
that
we know.
we love what you do, but go do it somewhere else.
Yeah.
We've heard that for over 3 years.
There's also a lot of very misconceptions. A lot of the things that you're talking about, our window that was broken for so long, that we did get fixed by a generous volunteer who volunteered everything. That wasn't a vandal. That was a kid, it was an accident, 2 brothers standing out there goofing around and fell against it, and thank God nobody got hurt. But that kid called up and owned it, and he came in and did community service to pay for it, which didn't end up costing us anything. But there's so many stories that it's so upsetting that this town, they won't come in. They don't set foot in there, but they have all these opinions of things going on that aren't true. They're just not true. I'm not saying it's perfect, and I know a lot of you know I've dealt with youth in this community for a lot of years, and it's difficult. But we have to do something, and we can't. I've noticed we've been closed because we didn't know there weren't going to be planning and zoning meetings for 3 months. So it really is a terrible time for us to be closed in the summer when school's closed. But these kids, I see them, they're all out here looking. Some of them would have come in, some of them don't come in there. But just because there's kids that have issues is not a reason. We're trying to respect by moving off the main drag, but this is where we need to be. We need to be where they can walk and they can be there, because those are the kids that need a place to be.
And I love that we're close to the police station. I love that. It makes me feel good, because a lot of nights I'm there by myself. She's there by herself. I love the new location because it is more smaller, to where I don't have to feel like I'm constantly everywhere trying to keep up with the kids. They're contained a little more. I can see everything a little better. But if something was to go wrong, and thank God nothing has so far, but let's get real, it could happen. I love the fact that if I call for help, it's gonna be there like that. It's not gonna take 15 minutes because, you know, some of these boys nowadays, they're twice my size, you know? I mean, things could go wrong. Or, you know, they could have something on them, you know, whatever. But the few times I've had to call the police, they've gotten there so quick that I've barely hung up the phone. And it's handled. You know, so, I mean, I feel really secure where we're at. And like she said, it's not perfect, but we believe in these kids. I don't even have kids. She doesn't have kids. We don't have kids in this age group. This isn't about our kids. We're not doing this for our kids. We're doing this because if I can help one parent not live with what I deal with every single day of my life, then this is all worth it. When your kid dies, man, it's too late. It's hard to get up and fight when your kid's gone. But I'm really trying to do that because we still have a problem here, a huge one.
And again, like Kelly said, it's been 3 years, and we first came before you, and the city has been an incredible support. And that's awesome because you were there when we were just a wing and a prayer, literally. But we have 3 years. We have a track record. We have St. Louis doing stories on us. You know, we've learned a lot too, and we know we still have a lot to learn. The security cameras we wanted to do all along, but we didn't have the money. Now we just got a $6,000 grant from an insurance funding in St. Louis that, you know, they just want to support the cause. We need to support our own cause. You know, we need money from outside sources, but we need to stand behind and show these kids that they matter. They matter. And they're all waiting for the day we get to reopen and they get to start coming back in again. So.
And we know that there's great kids here. We all live here too, just like you
Right.
guys.
But I'm sorry that it's
I
just
know.
emotional.
Oh, I know it is, and I'm
We
glad-
were taken a little back.
I'm
by-
appalled right now.
Well, but guys, also understand, part of what the role of planning commission, I've always been a big supporter of you guys. Part of what planning commission has to do is you have property owners downtown that are trying to attract and revitalize downtown and you know, they just came in and did a grant to get $25,000 grant to get training to try to revitalize downtown. And I did not hear them saying, your kids are bad kids. I heard them saying, the vandalism, is this an appropriate location? You know, that's what I took out from there, and that's what they're weighing, because I don't like seeing you guys get upset, because I've known you guys for a long time, but I don't think anybody has attacked your kids. And, you know, at the first meeting, you know, what'd you say?
I said I respectfully disagree with you.
Well, they said the vandals, they said the bad kids,
But
they said
they're blaming it on, and it's still interesting, like, how do you determine what Jordan's Place kids are?
Well, I told you,
I
guys.
respect what you said, and
Yes,
I
we pulled the
appreciate what you
statistics
said.
to say, is this a valid, it's anecdotal, it is what it is, but there is, when you have a conditional use permit, they have a job to weigh their opinions as property owners and investors as much as you, and you guys have been here for 3 years. But that's part of what they do, and I don't want this to delve into, you guys feel like you're not being supported when, you know, I think the city's always tried to support
The city
every.
has been incredible.
And I think they are supportive of you because they're not, you know, telling us that this is happening or whatnot. I will tell you, the majority of the calls we've received about Jordan's Place are from Jordan's Place, saying, hey, we have an issue going on here, or other people, not from property owners downtown. So it's not like they're calling every day trying to become a nuisance. So I just wanted to make sure that their role is clear to you guys, that they're not, that there's a weight here. And, you know, there is a staff concern about being right next to a tattoo parlor and a pawn shop, whether or not
Which you really.
downtown is great, but whether or not that's the right spot.
But you
to
know,
be-
we're right there anyway, next to the pawn shop, and Madame Voodoo's is a few doors down, and it's not that far, so it's. and
Well, it's
so
not in essentially the same
it's
building
not up to
cluster.
it, Yes.
In our hours, we close at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're closed at 7. We encouraging the kids to go home at 7 o'clock. On Friday and Saturday, we close at 8 o'clock. We don't have the kids out all hours of the night. We don't have them out. We
That's not
don't.
our-
You know, what they do past those hours, we can't control that. But Jordan's Place does not encourage the kids to be out and about late at night. We're not, you know, closing the doors at 10 p.m. going, I don't know where you're going, but you're not staying here. we're encouraging them. Unfortunately, we have a lot of parents that just, they don't care, you know? I hate to say that, I do, but it's true. But it wouldn't matter if they were at JP at 8 when they left, or if they were somebody's house, they're still not gonna be at home. But until 8 o'clock, they got fed, they were safe, probably got help with homework if it's during the week. We do whatever we can. We bag them up groceries to take home to their brothers and sisters. We do the best we can until 8 o'clock.
But my question is, because we still have the conditional use permit where we are now. So is the downtown committee, do they want us to stay there? Because we're not going to give up. We're not going to stop. And the kids, you know, we looked at a lot of locations when we first started, or we considered them. But everything brought us back to, like Kelly was saying, these kids are on Oak Street. They're right in the alley behind our building, in houses there, doing things they don't need to be doing. They're there. They're right there on Main Street. So we either give them somewhere to go or we don't. And if they don't have a place to go that's right here, they're going to continue to do what they're doing. And, you know, cameras are very, you can't even argue with that. We're going to have them on film. We're going to have them on camera. So that solves the concern of that there's going to be more vandalism to, Rat Daddy's next door.
Well, I mean, Kathy, I think part of the problem is, number one, I think you're taking a defensive posture like you're being attacked, and I don't know that that's necessarily the case. You're interpreting that, and there are comments where you guys do a great job and you have great service, but understand they're trying to revitalize downtown. They're trying to make it small shops, shopping, whatever. Not trying to run you guys out, but that's what planning and zoning does, is finds an in-between. Your conditional use permit still exists on that property. That runs with the land. So yes, and there's, I told you earlier, there's not been direct complaints about specifically what it is. To say that cameras solve the problem, cameras help find somebody that makes them responsible.
Right.
But cameras, I can tell you, we have cameras in all our parks, and it's amazing how they walk an approach to do the vandalism. If we had our parks director here, he will tell you that it does not stop any vandalism, that people will come out and they will hide their faces, they will do whatnot, but they will still, if Brad was here, he would spend a long period of time saying that cameras don't stop it. Even signs that say cameras stop it don't stop the vandalism. So that doesn't necessarily.
Mr. Costello, you want to come forward? You got a comment?
Greg Costello, I serve on the Board of Aldermen, and I can assure you that the city does have a concern about our youth, and we have a concern that the situation is getting worse. That isn't to be placed at Jordan's Place feet. I think it's actually nationwide. Kelly said the magic word to me is parents. And I don't know how we get back to where parents are responsible for their children. I hear this term free range, where they're literally turning their children out. And I stand here as a property owner downtown who has had boys on top of the roof of the buildings. There's high voltage wire there. I had a conversation with those three gentlemen a couple years ago. I've had windows broken out of our home. Cameras are not the answer. Cameras only show you who did it. And in the case that we had, it was a girl, a 12-year-old girl, and she was directing the two boys. And literally walked over, picked up firewood, and broke the back window of her house. The young ladies that bought Dr. Coon's old building done a fantastic job. You happen to have one of them on your board. We have a privacy fence between us, and they sprayed obscenities on that. They then came back the day or two after they broke the back window out and looked to see what they had done, and then broke a piece of architectural stone that was in our driveway. So I agree with the counselor that this isn't, I've lived there since 2007, 2008. This isn't something that we're standing here and should be standing here saying these are Jordan's Place children. But I can tell you that the situation in the downtown district has gotten much, much worse. I literally asked Terry Thorne to have our maintenance director pick up any objects on Main Street that could be thrown through a window. So that at least that opportunity or that attraction was gone. This isn't just in Warrenton. Sullivan, Missouri has a terrible problem with older children breaking into service stations and convenience stores while the cameras are running. And they turn it over to the juvenile department and nothing happens. And so I don't know, I do know what the answer is. It's having parents that care about their children. That's not your fault. It's not this board and it's not the city's fault. I can tell you that the city is working very hard to try to put together a skateboard park in the near future. We'll probably do that through an independent contractor. I will just tell you that I personally don't think that the downtown district is where this needs to be, because the problem is, as you say, when you close, they're turned out. And I think a lot of children are telling their parents that they're coming to your facility when they're not.
And how do you know that?
You don't. And this,
I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's
And I'm not
really,
either.
right, I know, I totally appreciate everything you're saying, but it's so frustrating. You know how many times a story will come to me and it's like, this is happening, that's happening, and so many people. And the question is, what are we gonna do? You're right. And that's why the school district came to us and said, Jordan's Place, we need you. We want you to be a part of this. And you know what? We've met every month with all kinds of supports in the community. And we've talked about this and we've talked about that. And I go every month to that meeting. We both go. And what have we done? Nothing different. We sit around and we talk about the solution and we do nothing. So we can't just say, oh, now we're going to take away Jordan's Place.
no, I don't think the answer is taking away Jordan's Place. I do think of perhaps a different business plan. The final question I'd have is, are you counting on the city funding you again this year?
We're not counting on it. We are requesting it. We still
We're
have.
not at the same level. We're planning on, just when we talked to the city, they told us, plan on coming back and definitely asking for at least half of what you paid for, and we've prepared ourselves to should be able to do that.
Okay.
That's our hopes.
And we do, like I said, we have St. Louis, O'Fallon, we have all these other towns granting money to us. And I'm like, that's awesome, and I realize we have to do that, and it's wonderful. But and again, this is, the people in this room, I can't say enough great things about the city, both with my Step Up program and this have been amazing. But we need to support our own town, and we need to do something about it as a town. And again, my stake in the game is I love youth, and they matter.
We all do.
We do, we know that.
Don't put us on opposite sides of the decision.
I'm not
I mean, you've got a city who is
trying to
opening an aquatic center
Yeah.
that is millions of dollars in cost. Who's that for? It's for our citizens, it's for our youth. You've got a city that has parks and recreation like none other. A sports complex that is far an
So when I
exception
say
of
we,
everything.
I mean to keep the citizens.
Well,
when I say we.
but I'm just saying to you that this is not just a Warrenton or Warren County problem. And it's a terrible problem, don't get me wrong with that, but please don't put us against each other, because that's just not, it's not correct.
Well, this is not the first time that this adventure's tried too. I mean,
Sure.
where Burger King and Subway was, we put one there at one time. And the Clinkies, my friends Clinkies, they built a youth center there, and
They
did
did.
yes, and did everything they could within their power.
Yeah.
And it was a neat place, and just it. But again, they ran into the same kind of issues that you're running into. This was back in the '90s, but
But what I'm seeing, Mr. Barton, and what is scary to me, we have 7 cameras on our home. We have 8 cameras, I believe, on our office. And when this vandalism occurred, I would have expected to see 15, 16-year-old kids.
Yeah.
We're probably talking 10 to 12 years.
Oh, I agree.
But do you?
And it happened at 4:20 in the afternoon, broad daylight.
But do you think Jordan's Place not being, so we took it off the main drag around the corner. Do you think Jordan's Place not being anywhere in the vicinity is going to change that?
No, but I also think that you have children who are telling their parents that they're coming to this place and they're roaming the downtown district.
And I can tell you that the parents that look after and check up on their kids come to JP and check on their kids to make sure they're there.
Yeah.
And the ones
They have
that
our cell phone
don't,
numbers.
won't anyway.
That's exactly right.
They don't care
But
what
I-
their kids come.
But I think they're using it as an excuse. We have children right now that law enforcement, they are banned from the parks because they smeared feces all over the inside of the restrooms multiple times. Vandalism multiple times, and the same children are being banned from the public pool. Incredibly bad language, same kids over and over, so.
Probably the same ones that are banned from JP.
Yeah,
Because we do ban them.
so, but that's my,
Okay, thank you, guys.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
What is the general age span for kids that come to Jordan's
So
Place?
we have 6th grade through high school. That's not normally how it works. Once they're driving age, they don't come back. So it's typically 6th grade through 15 years. Those are the kids that come and they hang out.
Junior high age?
Middle school,
first year of high
Yeah,
school.
to like sophomore.
Well, it seems like to me, we've definitely got a problem with the kids, but I don't necessarily say that Jordan Place is any more of a problem because we have it out in our parks, we're having it all over town. Maybe they're keeping a few of the kids from being out there doing some of this stuff, maybe not, I don't know. But, we gotta have some place for them to go, and
In 2011, I lived in Field of Dreams. My house got spray painted there. I lived in Woodridge at this time and been there 5 years. I had a drunk driver, youth, who wrecked into my driveway, drove off. Luckily, he lost his license plate in my driveway, so that got taken care of. But also, I've had my window busted out with a brick. So that's 2 locations that have nothing to do with anywhere close to downtown, but did have to do with youth. So this is, I agree with Mr. Costello. It is everywhere. And I can tell you that a key factor, it's drugs. Drugs normally are playing a huge role in these things. And, when they found the kids that were going through Field of Dreams and spraying, they had been huffing paint, and then the young man that had the wreck, of course, he was drunk. It was the last day of high school for him, and he wrecked. Kids that were throwing the rocks through the windows and the bricks through the windows, when they got caught, cars full of weed. Whatever it was, there was one common factor. And we know we have a drug problem here. We know we have a drug problem pretty much all around, everywhere. I don't know what we do about that, other than just keep trying to educate them younger and younger and younger,
So one of the things, getting back to why we're here, because we've gotten very emotional, we've gotten subjective, we actually, going back to, right now, we're actually discussing a global issue and not a conditional use for this actual business. So going back to the data that was provided, from what was said, there has not been a causation or a correlation that has been proved in the time that this place has been open, that there's been increase, and actually was a stated decrease in vandalism. Now,
Yeah,
that's the perception of the locals, but if you're looking at global data,
Statistically, yes,
Correct.
statistically, now I will tell you, and this is just from staff discussing it, we think the severity of the property damage has increased. The severity of the property damage of the bathrooms, for example, which we put kind of in this bubble, this vicinity. Severity has increased, it's slightly decreased, and that's just trying to really it's unfair to try to quantify and say how much of this property damage is put to Jordan's Place, because you have downtown businesses saying, I think this is the reason why, and you guys saying, we don't think it's the reason why, and it's a hot button issue.
And
But
if the data doesn't show it, then it's actually just a subjective opinion of other business owners that cannot be proven that it's actually being caused by this facility.
I think that as you see this discussion playing out, there's recognition of, yeah, this is the girl that was spray painting these symbols or these obscene gestures.
they are.
You guys know who they are.
But they're not Jordan's, she's not a
Okay,
Jordan's
hold
Place
on,
kid.
hold on. You guys don't own kids, you know.
Right.
There are kids
Exactly,
going
you're
down
right.
there. You guys have even admitted, you know, and said that, let's, because I want to try to get to a point where we're working on solutions here.
Yes.
Because Kathy, I feel like this is a legitimate concern that
Yep.
they have about downtown, and they're saying, this is a concern we have. This needs to be addressed. The whole point of a conditional use permit is to address issues, and rather than saying, that's not us, you know, what are the solutions to address it? From when you first came in here with Step Up, we have worked with you to address every single concern. So
Absolutely.
honestly, it's a little bit bothersome that you're ready to flip and say, you guys don't want us here, you're not doing anything for the youth or anything like that, when every single issue you've ever come with us with, we've collaborated to get it done, right?
I'm not, yeah, you are correct.
But you
and I'm
can't
not
say,
saying that.
I'm not, you
I'm
can't
not.
say the city's been great, but. It's like saying, I'm sorry, but. You know, it's like you're ready to,
Right.
you're just ready to attack and you're ready to get at it. There is property damage that has occurred in Jordan's Place. You said it yourself, how many times your husband, you guys know this is a real issue.
Mm-hmm.
To sit there, I don't think it's totally genuine to say it has nothing to do with us when you have it occurring in your own
First of all, I
facility.
never
And I
said it
think,
has
Kelly, that's to
nothing.
your point is,
Right.
you're like, look, we know it's an issue.
Right,
We're
because
trying
we
to
have
do.
it too. Right.
You have it too. So it's anecdotal, but there is a connectability here, and it's a concern, and I think it's a legitimate concern when you have downtown businesses, and I think you can understand, I put in, you know, you have people dumping $500,000 into a downtown building that needs a lot of work, and they don't want the windows to get busted out because they're on a shoestring budget and they're doing the same thing. So how do we get together here to address the concerns of the downtown businesses, address the staff concerns, and address your concerns as well? How do we collaborate on that instead of just getting, as you said, to these global pictures and what's wrong, and to this very defensive posturing of like, well, you don't support teams, or you need to do this, or this needs to be downtown.
Okay, we're gonna bring it back up to the board here. Mr. Costello?
Well, first thing I'd say is, you know, we've got a lot of great observations made, and so we can't come to good conclusions and make good decisions without having a full understanding of everything. One thing I do want to point out, Mrs. Pritchett, just to be clear, we haven't met since April as a Planning and Zoning Commission, but that's because we had nothing on our agenda, and I don't want anybody that's watched this meeting at home to believe that your issues couldn't have been heard because we weren't going to have a meeting. We didn't have a meeting because we didn't have any items on the agenda. And your site plan approval came in on June 29th. So this is the first meeting based on our public hearing and based on our advance request that we could have even heard your issue. So I want to make that clear that it's not that since April, the Planning and Zoning Commission has chosen not to be here. It's
Okay,
that there were no agenda items for us
And
to
I
look for.
don't need to go into, now's not the place that we need to argue that or discuss that, but
Well,
it
I
was
mean,
turned in before that.
The documents are dated, so.
Right.
So
But
that
it
is what it is.
doesn't matter at this point.
But having said that, you know, as a business owner on Main Street, the primary concern I have, and I agree with Mr. Cullum, not only is there not really any anecdotal evidence that Jordan's Place and the kids that come there have anything to do with any of the vandalism issues that have been going on. As a business owner on Main Street, I've encountered a few kids that you can tell they're up to something, and they've all been under the age of Jordan's Place clientele. So I don't think that, I think not only can we not say that it can be shown that Jordan's Place is the responsible, that those kids are the ones responsible. I think it's probably that it's not Jordan's Place kids at all that have been involved in this. So having said that, on the other hand, if you look at Main Street in general. There's really nothing on Main Street to draw kids downtown. The businesses that exist on Main Street are primarily, with the exception of bars and restaurants, are primarily daytime businesses. They're primarily daytime weekday businesses. There's not a lot of weekend or evening other than the bar restaurant trade. So my concern is that it's really not an environment that's probably the best environment if we want to help kids. I recognize that it's centrally located, that it's accessible on foot to kids that, as you've indicated, are under driving age. And so for that reason, there's some appeal because they can find their way to you. But my personal opinion is that those kids are better served and the business owners on Main Street are better served if Jordan's Place exists somewhere where the kids are otherwise likely to be, close to school or close to neighborhoods where there are larger numbers of kids. Because the reality is that the neighborhoods, there are some kids on either side, 2 streets east, 2 streets west, 2 streets north, 2 streets south, whatever. But on the whole, your population base is north and south. And so my opinion is that Jordan's Place plays a vital role in our community, but that Main Street is not the best environment for these kids, and that having kids downtown is not in the best interest of the businesses on Main Street. And that's my personal opinion.
Very well said. So at this point, we have a site plan. And that's not even before we get to the conditional use permit, so.
And I wonder, since this is the first discussion that's come up here, and I'm sure you guys have some thoughts to respond to this, but I wonder, if it may not be a bad idea to consider requesting applicants passing this matter to another meeting so you can think about some of the comments that came at this meeting as far as some feedback or response. You guys have a right to obviously request a vote tonight, and you guys may want to vote on it tonight, but my thought process is, Kathy, as we've always worked through stuff, we've heard the issues that have come up, and then we've discussed solutions to it. I don't know that there are solutions to this, because there's some concern about it, okay? But there have been some staff suggestions about, a fenced-off outdoor space that keeps people from being inside or whatnot, but, how you guys may address some of these concerns that were raised from the downtown business owners and whatnot that are out there. That's just one suggestion I thought you guys may want to consider.
No, I thought the same thing, honestly, that is it really for, since we're actually talking about global issues, citywide issues, that this should be something that is just back and forth here tonight and then determine what it's going to be. I was just thinking, what avenue could we offer between now and the next meeting for other parties for resolution?
I think, you guys are no strangers to our zoning process. You guys have learned how to do it. I think one of the things is talking to some of the downtown business owners and the Downtown Business Association about, what are their concerns? Because I think part of the thing is, as we've talked about the global issues, I don't know that we've really nailed this thing down to what can be done in this project area to improve it, That's one of the thoughts that I have is, are there some, typically what we do on conditional use permits is we put conditions on it. We put conditions on hours of operation. We put conditions on, certain different things that are with the property. What are some of the conditions we can put on this property that may, is there a middle ground that may meet some of that? There may not be, okay? But is there an option that's there? Site plan can be conditions put on the structure of the building, how the ingress and egress is completed and whatnot. But I think that's something to consider, and I think you guys have to give us a little bit of a thought process of where you guys are at.
Has the downtown committee met to try to hash out some other?
That's what's so disappointing is
That's
that
what started
no
the
one
whole
said a
thing.
word to us. So
Are you guys members of the Downtown Association?
we are not.
Okay,
I am.
so,
I am, and I can tell you a lot of their concerns.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you invite us to a meeting?
We didn't have a meeting specifically to speak
Okay.
about you guys.
All right.
Did not.
Okay.
It got brought up just as a side note after a meeting between a couple of people. A big issue is the Miller's building. They've got residential going in there. And who's going to want to rent from that building when they're looking across the street at a teen hangout that might be a problem?
So that's, okay.
That's a valid point. They're going to have some really nice retail space on the main floor. Shouldn't bother either of you either way of that, but I think the big part is the living quarters, and who's going to want to rent when there might be a problem across the street.
And I understand what you're saying, but I struggle so badly with the fact that, because, we've been closed all summer. And, we can say the skate park's coming and all that awesome stuff is coming, and I can't wait for it to get here. But we have to do something now. We can't just keep saying, I'm sorry that you're not understanding. I am not blaming or adverse to the city. I take constantly when people say stuff negative about the city. All I do is say they've been wonderful to us. They've been wonderful to us, because you have. But we can't keep putting the kids on the back burner. We just all talked about what an issue it is, and maybe someone has a suggestion where we should go. We can't go to, first they were telling us go to the outlet mall. We can't go there. Kids will never make it there. Plus, that's going to be developed. So,
We can't afford a lot of places.
Yeah, who wants
How long have you guys
us?
been closed now?
Since the middle of June.
Yeah, middle of
Since the
June.
And so have we seen an increase, decrease, or whatever on the amount of problems we have with the youth around the
We've
area?
seen a significant decrease, but also understand we have stepped up enforcement.
Stepped up, yeah.
We have a program where the chief is, really tries to communicate, or a member of the police department tries to communicate with downtown business owners and have avenues of communication open up. So I don't know, once again, that you can quantifiably say Jordan's Place is closed, there's less property damage. There has been less property damage, but a lot of that has been because the Downtown Business Association has become extremely active, and the police department does routine walking patrols in the alleyways and whatnot. So it has been less.
Right. And are we going to take the issues and move it somewhere else? I mean, if we're not here, wherever you think we should be, and we go,
Well-
is it going to just move the vandalism, because we're not
utopian-
here?
I think Scott brought up a utopian society is closer to the schools, less residential. I mean, there's a lot of places that, and my point is this, I've been here since 1989, and every time I got frustrated with something in the community, I go to bed at night thinking, is this where I really want to be? But then I wake up and say, you know what? There's enough movers and shakers in this community that I have seen firsthand
Right.
make things happen when they know it's the right thing to do for our kids and our community. The thing is, you just got to get your foot in the door to know who the movers and shakers are that could help us resolve a situation like this. I don't know the answer,
I know.
or I would tell you. But I know if it's worth having, this can be made happen, but it's got to be, it's not going to be done here tonight, I don't think. But like Mr. Graville said, I think it's up to you if you want us to vote on it, or if you want to table it and think about it and take some concerns. Maybe you can address the Downtown Association. I don't speak for them, but that's
I'd be happy to tell you when the next meeting is.
that is strictly
Anyone's
your
welcome to come.
that is strictly your call.
And I think that, I just want to say this because I don't want you guys to ever think that we don't appreciate you.
Oh.
I think Kathy, we were taken back when they stood up and said that. These people,
Completely.
kids come to JP, they've done fundraisers for JP. I mean, we've had a huge support from downtown, from both of the parties that were here today. So I guess we were a little taken back just because no one came and spoke to us, and then they stood up and said this tonight. I think that's where the defense came. It wasn't towards you, it just seemed like it came out that way, and I apologize for that because
Well,
it's
that's,
not
I
towards
was
you.
thinking, Kelly, that like maybe giving this a little time to breathe to say, okay, you guys are problem solvers. We've worked with you before. There's a legitimate interest to revitalize downtown and make it a very specific district. These, the Downtown Association has been somewhat inactive and now it's super active. And, that harmony there, that's got to be worked out because this is a downtown. This is a downtown area, and everybody wants this to be a thriving place that people come to shop, eat, hang out, whatnot, live. You guys want that too, but
Absolutely,
nobody
yeah.
wants teenagers, but we're not
I'm
connecting
afraid we
here.
can't afford to be anywhere else.
Well,
To be honest, I'm just being honest.
and the answer to our society question is getting kids involved at school. I mean, if every kid would get involved in something in school, but unfortunately, we just don't have that happen. Right, we know that, but, I mean, yeah, just, that's utopian again. All right, so,
Well, I mean, I guess,
I mean, our best bet's to table it.
I
'Cause
guess
It's not
I'll
going to
wait.
go well if we don't.
yeah. Just be closed, continue to be closed, but yeah, I think that's our only option, really.
Well,
we
even
wanna-
if they voted tonight and made a recommendation, it would not be approved tonight. It would still have to go.
Right, we
to-
understand, it would go to the Board of Aldermen then at the end of the month, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So back
we-
to what you said, is there a happy medium that we could make a decision somehow and come back before the Board of Aldermen? I know we've had other situations where we don't want to make you wait a whole nother month.
Yeah, when is the meeting in the downtown session?
Oh, I mean, we're all down here, we're all friends. You want to, I can put a phone call out if you guys want to go have lunch tomorrow, anything. You know, we're all here to make this community better. So, I mean, you don't have to wait for a meeting when it comes to the
So,
group of people
yeah,
that
I
were
mean,
here.
so are you saying that we could meet and then come back at a date before the Board of Aldermen meeting this month?
I don't know that we're gonna be able to meet, you know,
Right.
we have the publication requirement. I don't know, I mean, realistically, it makes sense if you're going to pass it, to take it up at the next planning and
Right.
zoning meeting, because I think one of the things is, I wanna talk to the city administrator, and, we wanna try to facilitate a dialogue here.
Right.
But also, we wanna facilitate a dialogue that is productive and takes everybody's concerns into account. And I think it's gonna take some time to do it, because I think there's, just like I said, from my perspective, I can understand what the person that's dumping $500,000 in, and what his concern is about building residential units. He's gonna try to attract, he's trying to be, yes, that building was not occupied when you guys moved down there, but everybody wants that building occupied. Now,
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily mean you guys can't coexist, but also you guys are the ones that are moving. It's a financial issue, but there's been taken no action to move you from the other building.
We could stay there.
Right.
We were trying to accommodate what was asked of us last year when the city supported us with the funding. So that's what's been on our mind.
And where are you guys with the funding application? Have you guys begun that process?
Yes, we turned
Because
in
is
a
that a
packet.
necessary process for you to be in this new space or
No.
the old space or whatnot? I mean,
No, based on several newer things that have come to us, we would not have to have that. We can exist without it. It would be more difficult in the space we were in to continue. Not to say that we couldn't, but the new space is half the rent, half the utilities, way more cost effective. And that's the beauty of it, is it's smaller, it's nice, it's nicer. And we're even looking at our whole business plan as far as, do we want to do more, we're going to have way more control, because the space is half the space. So we're going to see everything going on here, everything going on. It's just going to be a different atmosphere, but also more counseling, more support groups, more things like that. Trying to and bring the families in, which is difficult. So we're looking at that as well. And I can tell you, as much as it will kill me to not open on August 25th, because we've changed the date many times, nothing would make me happier than to sit down with some people that really want to do something. And I would love to sit down with the city. I would love to sit down with the downtown. And, we're just two people. And obviously, if the whole town gets together and we really, truly try to come up with a solution, I'm all over that.
yeah, but Kathy, here's the thing that bothers me about what you said. Even when you did step up, you had to come in and do a rezone, a conditional use, and I sat down with you, with Jack Hanf,
Right.
and walked you through every single thing and said, here's a solution, here's a solution.
Right.
What I don't like is kind of this threat of, we want to be open on this day, but if you're willing to sit down, that's not fair.
I'm not
We have a
trying,
long history of sitting down and having
Yes.
dialogues with you over every single issue that you've had, you
Right.
know?
I- I'm not articulating it correctly
Okay,
then.
I
Because
just want
that's
to make
not
sure
what
that's
I'm
clear,
saying.
because
No.
we have always, the city has always allocated its resources
100%.
to work with every issue you
100%.
guys have had, and whatever
100%.
projects you guys have worked
Right,
on.
Do you
100%.
think that's a good move that we
But
table this?
Yes, but I would like to definitely sit down with you,
Sure.
but it's not just the downtown committee, it's way bigger than
Sure.
that. So if we're gonna
Sure.
come up with something different, which we're completely open to, as long as it's still going to help the kids, then we need to have more than that sitting down. And I'd be open to anybody that has ideas on who that is.
And just to clarify, because you did say when we were talking about the possibility of tabling, if we table, this board has to meet again before they can vote, make a recommendation before it goes to the Board of Aldermen. And so just understand that
Right.
procedurally, it's not possible to table it and then it still get taken up at the next
Right,
BOE
I understand, we
meeting.
would have to wait then till September,
Right, sure.
P and Z in September, and then the Board of
And
Aldermen.
really, most of the conversation that we've had really is relevant to the conditional use side. It's not really, in my opinion, the things we've talked about are not very significant to the site plan piece, which is just,
Right.
does it fit the guidelines? It's more the conditional use piece. And so we've it often happens, we have the conversation that relate to both conditional use and site plan
Sure.
as part of the first conversation, which is always site plan. So, but having said that, I would, based on your agreement, I would move to table this until the next meeting and give you the opportunity to meet with city and WDA to hopefully work through and come to some consensus on what works.
Okay.
And I would second that motion.
We have a motion and second by Mr. Costello, and second by Mr. Deitch to table this. Can I lump both of them together, or do I need to do it individually?
No, you can do them together, I think that
To
makes sense.
table the site plan and conditional use permit for Jordan's Place, so they can meet together and discuss better options in the future, one way or the other. So, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mr. Deitch?
Yes.
Mr. Cullum?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Durbin?
Yes.
Mr. Gerloff?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondin?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0, and we, once again, thank you. And,
If you want to wait till after the meeting and we can
Yeah.
talk outside.
okay. At this time, we'll close our meeting and ask for any discussions from the city.
I have nothing.
Randy?
I think we have some stuff
Melanie?
coming up next,
We do have something next month,
Yes, we
hopefully?
do have something already for next month.
for rezoning.
Mhm.
Yeah. CEF is that the CEF one?
Yes, CEF.
Submitting a request to rezone part of their property.
Who is?
CEF, Christian
Okay.
Evangelistic Fellowship.
And they're in the
Part of it,
city?
Yeah,
what?
Yeah, they are.
That's what I said. What
It's
did you
around the
say,
horn.
Stacy?
we have it landlocked.
I didn't know it was in the city.
It's surprising, but it is. Part of it to industrial and the other part to residential, so they've got a large track out there, so that'll come up next meeting.
Anybody else have anything for the good of the group? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Deitch, second by
Me.
Mr. Costello. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming out. Have a good rest of the week.